Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Tuesday, August the 1st, 2023. Happy August! Today I want to talk about today's full moon, and I'm going to do it in two different ways. Firstly, I'm going to make it just part of my analysis of the day's astrology, how it affects us today on Tuesday. I then want to consider the full moon on a more long-term basis. How is it going to affect us over the weeks to come? The full moon probably is going to last for up to 4 weeks until the next full moon. By the way, this month there are actually two full moons. There's a full moon now, right at the beginning of a month, and there's a full moon right at the end of a month. That does not have any mystical or supernatural significance. It's just the way it works. It just so happens that there are two full moons this month. And when looking at perhaps the longer term impact of this full moon, I want to sort of consider how it might affect us as individuals, how it's going to affect the world, perhaps which parts of the world it's going to affect more than others. And I want to look at a few famous people that this full moon might have an impact on. I came up with, Paris Hilton. She's a socialite, isn't she? Apparently, the full moon affects her, supposedly, in theory. Nicola Sturgeon, the former First Minister of Scotland, this full moon has an impact. General Zaluzhny, the Ukrainian general, he did disappear for a time, but he's apparently come back, and this full moon could have an impact on him. So those are a few of the famous people I want to consider when looking at this full moon. But before I do that, I want to look at today's astrology, and today is Tuesday, August the 1st, 2023. So here we go. These are the planets for today, and you can see there's our full moon, the moon in Aquarius, sun in Leo. So when you have a full moon, you have got, by definition, an opposition between the sun and the moon, with the earth in the middle. And so full moons can often be somewhat stressful. The full moon brings an issue out in all its glory, in all its horror. So we can see the world for what it is, for better or for worse. And sometimes it can be a shock. When we look around us, whether it's relationships, the state of society, the state of our finances, the light is on it. We can see what used to be hidden. So today, look around you. Ask yourself some questions. You can see the truth now. So what are you going to do? Very often, when people see the truth, they just want to pretend it doesn't exist. They want to retreat back to their fantasies, retreat back to their jaundiced view of the world. So be honest with yourself. We really have to be honest with yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself, you cannot take constructive action to deal with an issue. So that's the full moon. On balance, I regard the full moon energy as being more negative than positive. But there are other things going on which are positive. For example, there's Mars. Can you see Mars in Virgo? It's trine Jupiter in Taurus. So Mars trine Jupiter can be about successful action which we can actually do, and actions which can have a positive impact. And for best results, we're going to remember that this Mars trine Jupiter happens in Earth signs. So this action should ideally take place on the material plane, whether it's to do with money, business, career, tidying up junk, that kind of thing. Whatever the action is, it can be successful, but don't be tempted to go completely over the top. In certain situations, Mars and Jupiter can be quite a dangerous pair because they can encourage us to push things too far. So whatever you're doing, don't do that. There are limits. Keep it simple. So that's the main stuff going on. Now, with this full moon, remember, the moon is in Aquarius, the sun is in Leo. Two positive signs, the fire signs and the air signs. Leo is a fire sign, Aquarius is an air sign, both positive, but they work in very different ways. So sun in Leo wants to be center of attention. Moon in Aquarius is more detached. So we're going to have to sort of balance those two energies. We can't just be obsessed with ourselves and being on stage all day long. That's just not possible. We do need a bit of detachment because otherwise we could start looking rather stupid. Now, another thing going on, which is building up. Maybe it'll hit peak force tomorrow, but you can see that Mercury is in Virgo and Saturn is in Pisces, and they're moving to an opposition. Mercury opposition Saturn. So Mercury is very well placed in Virgo. It rules Virgo, but opposition Saturn, we might be hitting a brick wall in some areas. Mercury opposition Saturn can be associated with depression. And I want to use the word depression in the non-clinical sense of the word. I'm not using it in a medical or psychiatric term. All of us get depressed at times. All of us feel negative. All of us ask ourselves, well, what is the point? And so with Mercury opposition Saturn, we might feel so bogged down with detail and having to worry about this and that, but we're thinking, God, can we actually achieve anything here? So there may be a great sense of negativity there. And so what do we do about this negativity? If we find ourselves feeling really negative about the world, or particular projects we're involved in, what should we do? Well, I would have said, firstly, to say, well, a bit of negativity is no bad thing. A bit of negativity can allow us to be realistic. It's all a downer having to look at the details, ask ourselves what might go wrong, but it is really necessary. So a bit of negativity could be good. We just don't want it to go over the top. We don't want to sit on this negativity. We don't want this negativity to fester. We need to use our brains to work out the best way of dealing with the situation. Mercury in Virgo, a very analytical sign. A very analytical placement. So, we need to use our brains to work out how to get through this negativity. And to perhaps correct our mistakes and just be honest about it. And then we can move on. And we just mustn't get stuck in a cycle, or should I say a spiral of negativity, because that is just is not going to help. Now, as far as my forecasts for the 12 signs are concerned, as always, I did my forecasts for all 12 signs for Tuesday, August the 1st, 2023. So here goes. Aries, it's looking good. The world around you is becoming more interesting, and with Mars, your ruler, aspecting Jupiter, you have more opportunities to express yourself. And now that you have a clearer idea about your core ambitions, you can start thinking about what needs to be done to realize your potential. Taurus, you can surprise both yourself and others with your creative flair. You don't have to apologize for being who you are, and if you're true to yourself, you'll get the rewards you deserve. In your career, it pays to be original, so be ready to think outside the box in such a way that you can come up with solutions that no one else has thought of. Gemini, are you satisfied with short-term solutions to everyday problems, or are you looking for something bigger which encompasses many aspects of your life? Short-term solutions tend to be the popular choice, but today's full moon challenges you to go further. A burst of silent but feverish activity can have amazing results. Cancer. Full moons are always an important event for Cancerians. You can feel the change, and perhaps you'll be moving from one extreme to another. And one thing you do have to do is bring some stability to your financial situation. You don't want to have any surprises, and the prerequisite for prosperity is total awareness. Leo, the clouds are clearing and the truth is right in front of you. But will you accept it? Or will you put it on hold for another day or another week or another month or even another year? If you're wise, you'll have the honesty to not just accept the truth, but also to act on it. And on a related subject, relationships of all kinds could take a decisive turn. Virgo, something seems to be bothering you. You can see the future, and you can foresee some roadblocks on the horizon, but it's important not to worry too much about the situation. Instead, make some preparations and remind yourself that nothing in life is easy. Besides, Mars is aspecting Jupiter, and for some Virgoans, this may be just enough to get them over the line. Libra, it's important to be tolerant, particularly when dealing with people who have got more energy than you. You might not want to follow their lead, and maybe that's wise. However, maybe you need to contribute something to the party. Your unique abilities can make the difference between success and failure. Scorpio. Being a Scorpio, you like to have a single-minded focus, but sometimes you have to consider other pressures. Perhaps you want to throw all your resources into one direction, but everyone else wants to move in the other direction. Rather than take one action or the other, you need to do what is best for everyone, including yourself. Sagittarius. You're a Sagittarian, and you regard the big picture as being important, and you perhaps take the view that you can worry about the details later. On the other hand, without the details, the big picture may reveal itself to be pure fantasy. Under these circumstances, you need to take strong and precise action to sort out the fundamentals. Every detail, every fact will count. Capricorn, you understand that everything has a financial consequence, particularly today when there is a full moon across the finance axis of your solar chart. And at the same time, you might see your financial situation for what it is, for better or for worse. At the same time, there's no doubt that you've got a lot of power at your disposal. Aquarius, relationships are changing, and maybe it has got something to do with psychological insight, seeing people for what they are and knowing what role they should or shouldn't have in your life. And being an Aquarian, you have the intelligence and the detachment to make the right decisions. Pisces, just because a person or a situation is annoying doesn't mean that you should walk away. Sometimes you need a dynamic challenge, and today you can be energized and invigorated by outside agencies. And there is the potential for developing a powerful rapport with the right person. So I'm now going to look at the I Ching. And as usual, I ask the question to the I Ching, what is Tuesday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? So the first and only hexagram I got was this: difficulty at the beginning. It is locked. It doesn't move. So that kind of sums up what it's going to be like today. I think it's going to be difficult to get things done. Particularly if, we start a new project, and at the beginning of this project, things are just not going to happen. It's going to be hard work. The I Ching often talks about clouds without any rain, and that's perhaps how it's going to feel. We thought it was going to be fine. We thought we were going to get going on something, but as soon as we start, it just doesn't work. It's just really hard. So what do? Well, the I Ching counsels us to be a little persevering, but not too persevering. So we've got to try to get things moving, thinking perhaps beyond today, thinking about perhaps tomorrow. So if something's not working today, maybe tomorrow things will be better. So a bit of perseverance would be good, but a lot of perseverance, no. Because basically if we do that, we'll just be banging our head against a brick wall, probably. It'll be very difficult to make any progress, and we will just exhaust ourselves. And then we could also cause ourselves and our environment a lot of damage by putting in too much effort. So really, that's all that needs to be said. Difficulty at the beginning. Just accept it. Don't worry about it. You don't have to give up on a project just because it's difficult to begin with. Just keep going in a gentle way, without going over the top. So I'm now going to go back to the astrology, and I'm going to look at the full moon, but this time I'm going to look at the full moon in detail. I'm going to be, asking the question, what is the next month basically going to be like in terms of this full moon? And particularly the first 2 weeks. There's some questions about how long a full moon lasts for. Certainly 2 weeks until the next new moon, but it may actually be 4 weeks until the next full moon. So in some respects, this full moon chart could actually summarize what August is going to be like, though I think it's more likely to be just the first half of the month. So we have Sun in Leo, opposition Moon in Aquarius. There's that tension between, our egos and wanting attention with the need to be a little bit detached. So that is going to be a theme, and we need to remember that full moons tend to be unfortunate, while new moons tend to be more fortunate. It's a time when we start to see things as it is. The truth is right in front of us. And so over the next 2 weeks, we may start to discover things which we might not like in all cases. But, it's just important to be honest. Now, as far as other things going on in a chart are concerned, you'll notice that Jupiter is square the moon and square the sun. So in a way, we've got a T-square, sun-moon opposition with Jupiter on the T. So I'd read that as saying that, if we do face frustrations, we're going to be encouraged to really, really push it. We're going to really try hard to get out of the problem we're in. Maybe just through sheer optimism, but sheer optimism on its own, doesn't mean very much. So we have to back it up with something concrete. But maybe that's possible because Jupiter is in Taurus. That is an earth sign. And so the practicality of Jupiter in Taurus can help us to get past whatever blocks we have to deal with. So, there is a sense of optimism there. On the other hand, the full moon is taking place at the same time as a stressful aspect between Mercury and Saturn. So when you look at a full moon chart, you do need to look at whatever else is going on in the chart, because that stuff going on in the chart is going to be intensified by the presence of a full moon. So this Mercury-Saturn opposition could carry through for the next couple of weeks. As I've already said, the Mercury-Saturn opposition could be a bit negative, could be a bit depressive. May see the worst possible outcome rather than the best possible outcome. So bear that in mind. So if you find yourself feeling a bit negative over the next couple of weeks, just realize that it's just a passing phase, and the influence of this full moon is certainly not going to last forever. Particularly this full moon, because I don't actually think it's a very powerful full moon. It's not an eclipse. There aren't huge planetary aspects. If you look at the sun, the full moon, it's not really aspected by anything except for Jupiter, not in a really major way. So yeah, it's not really much of a big deal, this full moon. Now, as far as people, famous people, celebrities, how are they going to be influenced by this full moon? Now, a few weeks ago, I was looking at the horoscope of, let me get the pronunciation right, Ghislaine Maxwell. The S is supposed to be silent. Like someone commented on that before I mispronounced her name. So Ghislaine Maxwell. I looked at her horoscope, and let me just show you her horoscope. So there's her chart. She was born December 25th, 1961. Look at the midheaven. She has got 835 Aquarius on the midheaven. She's got Jupiter at 904 Aquarius. So what that means is that this full moon has a direct impact on her Jupiter conjunct the midheaven. And it's more than that, because in her case, she has got Hades, the hypothetical planet Hades, square her midheaven. So this full moon hits quite a major configuration in her chart. Jupiter on the midheaven, square Hades. So as we know, she's in prison. Must be quite a Hades place. And so this full moon is going to bring something out. Now, it may be that this represents something constructive she's about to start doing in prison. I don't know. She may be educating prisoners. I read somewhere that she was teaching them yoga. Maybe something she can get involved in a positive sense. But Hades is involved. I'm slightly concerned about that full moon for Ghislaine Maxwell. It may be problematic, particularly as Hades is involved. So I think over the next month, she does need to. I think she probably needs to look after herself, because something is coming out into the open We might not know what it is, but maybe it will become clear, what's going on in prison for her. So that's one chart that came up, which the full moon impacts. Meghan kind of affects her. See, Meghan has got a Sun-Mercury conjunction, and so the full moon is on her Sun-Mercury midpoint, and it's also on her, aspecting by semi-square her Venus-Saturn midpoint. So I think the full moon is going to really bring something out for Meghan. The fact that the Venus-Saturn midpoint is also involved may indicate relationship issues. I wouldn't say that for sure, but using the Placidus house system, the full moon is across her first and the seventh houses. I understand in the whole sign system it will be the second and the eighth, but I think I'd regard that full moon as having quite a strong first house feel. But even if it doesn't, if it's a second house thing, maybe it's about money. So something either to do with relationships or money for Meghan. She kind of sees the truth about something. And so what's she going to do? That's when she has to take action. And the fact that it's on the Venus-Saturn midpoint may encourage her to be quite harsh in terms of relationships, perhaps. She's going to take the view, got to do what she's got to do, and other people better just deal with it. So that's a full moon for Meghan. Oh, Camilla, another royal chart. Is Meghan royal? I suppose she is in a sense. So that's Nigel Farage's chart. No, we want Camilla's chart. What's her name? The Queen Consort. You can see that she's got the full moon on her Saturn, and she's got Saturn in the first house. First, seventh again. Her relationship with the King Charles III. Maybe, that Saturn, this Saturn is a very important link between her and Charles, because Charles has Leo rising as well. So the fact that Charles and Camilla both have Leo rising, and we've got this full moon across the first, seventh house, really in both cases, does mean that their relationship is going to be affected in some way. Again, it's one of those situations we'll never know, probably never know how, but we can speculate, or rather you can speculate. I don't think I really want to speculate. So there are a couple of royal charts that might be impacted by the full moon. Paris Hilton. I don't know if you're interested in Paris Hilton. Socialite, celebrity. Her moon is in Leo. So she's got a full moon across her moon. Her moon is in the eighth house. Maybe a financial issue. The moon, it's a female chart, Paris Hilton. I would argue that she's more a Leo than an Aquarius, because in a female chart, particularly an adult female, the moon is really more descriptive than the sun. She is a Leo. She has, she's a larger than life personality, probably got a very strong opinion of herself, or rather a very high opinion of herself. So you got the full moon on top, hitting her moon. So again, for her, some aspect of her position in society, she may just see it for what it is, something like that. But personally, I don't find Paris Hilton very interesting, but I'm just mentioning her name just in case you are interested in her. Then there's Nicola Sturgeon, the former First Minister of Scotland, and she's had all sorts of legal issues. And as we know, we don't know precisely why she stood down as First Minister of Scotland, but it went badly very quickly for her. And we have got the full moon, sun on her Mercury, moon on her conjunct her moon, and she's got Mercury opposition moon square the ascendant. So this full moon hits her chart. So I would have said she is going to perhaps realize new things. Her Mercury is going to see things, and I don't think that this full moon is going to have a positive impact on her. I think it's more of a negative thing. Maybe she will perhaps start to understand the kind of things she's involved in. Facts will be made available to her. Information will come her way, and she will increasingly start to see the truth of the matter. And yeah, that might be quite painful for her. One other person I want to talk about is General Zaluzny. He is, this very senior Ukrainian general. I'm not quite sure who's the top person in the Ukrainian army. Is it Siersky or is it Zaluzny? I don't know. But you will notice that he has Jupiter at 10 Aquarius, Venus at 10 Leo. So he's got Venus-Jupiter opposition. And I'd noticed that before, and I'm just trying to work out what that meant. What does it mean to have a Venus-Jupiter opposition? Venus and Jupiter are the benefics. They're supposed to be fortunate influences, yet they're in opposition. It may be to do with his health. The way the body works, the way glands work, weight fluctuates, this kind of thing. So it may be that this full moon on his Venus-Jupiter, has some issue with his health. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a serious issue, but I would have thought that this full moon is probably going to impact his ability to do his job in some way. It might also be about disappointment. Venus opposition Jupiter, there are going to be moments of, if you've got it in your chart, of great optimism, the two benefics configured like this. But it's an optimism that can move from one extreme to the other, which I suppose is pessimism, Venus opposition Jupiter. And so with this full moon on his Venus-Jupiter opposition, maybe he'll start to see the military situation for what it really is. Or with Venus, he may start to see the people he's involved with for what they really are. I don't know how much does he have to do with Victoria Nuland. Maybe he'll see her for what she is. I don't think that the full moon is particularly good for Zaluzny. I'm not saying it's going to be catastrophic, and probably if I were to advise Zaluzny, I would probably suggest he has a medical checkup. He probably has lots of medical checkups, but getting blood tests, whatever. Maybe something's out of balance, needs to be sorted out. So that's him. Finally, I wanted to mention Ukraine. So this full moon can be set for different locations. So this full moon here was set for Westminster in England. You can see that Uranus is on the IC, so that's sort of the lowest point of the chart. So that might suggest, I don't know, a bit of instability in the UK, but that sounds a bit vague. I suppose it's a time where, I don't know, maybe the country has to be particularly watch out for terrorism, maybe, with Uranus on the IC. But it's probably nothing. Then we can relocate this chart to Kiev. So this is a full moon set for Kiev. set for Kiev. And we notice in this full moon set for Kiev that Saturn is exactly, well, not quite exactly, fairly within a degree of the ascendant, and Mercury is very close to the descendant. So that this Mercury-Saturn opposition I talked about is exactly on the horizon when you set the full moon for Kiev. To me, that suggests a certain air of depression in the city, maybe in Ukraine in general. Maybe this is the start of a realization that the situation is hopeless. That Saturn in Pisces, Virgo. I know that Ukraine is a Virgo country, and you've got Saturn moving towards that opposition of its sun in Virgo. Mercury hitting that as well. Okay, this opposition the Saturn's opposition to Ukraine's sun in Virgo doesn't happen, I don't think, for a couple of months. But still, it's the beginning of a realization that it's just, this whole thing they're involved in is unlikely to work very well. And maybe it's, people in government starting to realize this, or maybe they always realized it. I don't know how it works. I don't know what's going through their minds. But I would not have said this is particularly fortunate. Okay, you could say, well, what about Moscow? Okay, Moscow, how does the full moon affect Moscow? Okay, I suppose you very quickly look at that. Okay, here's the charts, the full moon set for Moscow. Saturn is quite close to the ascendant, but it's miles away, in terms of angularity. So it's 12 degrees off the ascendant. So I don't think that this full moon is hitting Moscow anything like as badly as it's hitting Kiev. But overall, as far as this full moon is concerned, one can be dramatic about it, but I must emphasize that it is not a strong full moon, and us as ordinary individuals, I don't think that we really have to, in most cases, worry about it too much. Which is one of the reasons I didn't have a separate video for the full moon. I just thought I'd just have it as an appendage on today's video for August the 1st. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.